So, good evening everyone. I am Verly Fernili and with my partner Emily Sourdo and we are Group 6. So, tonight we're going to tackle about the Renaissance, the Baroque Rococo, the 19th century and the 20th century. So, Renaissance. The Renaissance is the beginning of the modern period of transition. Means rebirth in French. It began with interest and engagement with the classical during the ancient Greece and Rome. So the learning the culture and literature, art and style of others. So the meaning of the Renaissance is a rebirth in French. So there is start which the renewed the interest and engagement of the individual in classical. So in ancient time of Greece and Rome. Then this was a time of period following the Middle Ages that lasted from the 1300 to 1500 circa. Under Renaissance, it refers to a period of European civilization that was marked by a revival of classical learning and wisdom. So this was the time of that the Renaissance were coming out from the dark. It was a rebirth of the education, science, art, and literature, and music also, to give a better life for the people in general. So, two major divisions of Renaissance. The Italian Renaissance, who occurred first. So while they focused on the city-state, the Italian Renaissance tended to be more worldly with a great emphasis in circular pursuit of the humanities and the arts, wealth, and power. So mas gin-emphasize nila ang circular sa Italian Renaissance. So mas gikan na kung unsa ka great nga pag-emphasis sa circular para sa mga humanities, not only the arts but para ma-enhance nila ang kung sa pagpadato sa ilang mga arts nila and sa power nga ilang ginakuptan. So the second one is the Northern Renaissance, which is the spread of Renaissance was delayed in Northern Europe. So the reason why nga delay ang pag-abot sa Renaissance sa Northern Europe because of the Northern Europe is mas mas famous gihapon sa ila ang feudal system. So mas gina-emphasize nila ang idea sa feudal system kay dili pa really to accept ang Northern Renaissance sa mga new ideas kay tungod sa feudal system na pa sa ilaha. Then one of the reason nga slowly jud ang pag-abot ay pagkatag sa Renaissance because walay pahuway nga war and political unrest sa ilaha. So one of the reason is the 100 Years of War, which is the war between the England and France. So during the 1000 to 300 until the 1450 of circas. So and one of the reason niya ning hinay og pag-adapt ang Northern Renaissance kung tungod man jud sa plague and feminine sa patay og sa mga pag-decrease sa ilang population og sa ilang trading business. So ang plague is one of bubonic plague nga Black Death nga kada ka nangamatay sila almost half of the population nga nangamatay sa Northern Renaissance. So while the feminine is not only ang mga tanom nga nangamatay sa ilaha but also mga animals nga dapat ma-invest nila ma-trade nila into other places. So the North was removed from the centers of trade and culture, like what I have said nga remove ang Northern Renaissance sa mga trade and culture kay tungod mangod sa pag-ubos 80% of population and farmers and crops failures and animal killing and during the Northern Renaissance. The people in the North were holding into the feudal system as living. As a result, town trade and the more progressive ideas that tend to come with and develop more slowly in the North. So, like what I have said last time, the feudal system is mas mo pa siya famous sa Northern Renaissance. So, manang slowly ang progressive ginagtabo sa Northern Renaissance. So, the father of Renaissance, Francisco Petrarch, the Italian poet. So, we all know already encountered of this name, Francisco Petrarch, in high school days. He laid the foundation of Renaissance of humanism through his writings. So, makita mismo naailanan nato siya kay daghan during our high school days, mga Italian poet nga gipansulat ni Francisco Petrarch ato na siya nabagatan. Then Renaissance art. Renaissance artists embraced some of the ideas of Greece and Rome in their art. So, mas mga artists during sa Renaissance time, gina-embrace nila ang mga ideals sa Greece and Rome sa pamaagi sa mga art. So, they wanted their subject to be realistic, focus on humanity and emotion. So, mas ang mga artists sa Renaissance time is gina-focus nila into realistic, like sa mga humanity o mga emotion kada individual. So, new technique also emerged. So, nagbag-umabag ang technique sa Renaissance art. So, fresco. Painting done on wet plaster became popular because it gives depth to the painting. Like what example on that image, the Sistine Chapel of Michelangelo. So, like makita ninyo kung unsa siya ka-popular, unsa siya the message or the message na pinakita sa paintings. Sculpture emphasize realism and human form. So, makita niyo sa image kung unsay gina-emphasize sa artist through the paintings. Architecture reach new heights of ideas like sa mga nakita nato ang mga paintings nga nasa sa chapel. So na siya one of example na siya nga sa mga gipangkuan sa mga architecture nga gipangbuhat ng mga paintings. So Renaissance art, a reflection of Renaissance ideals and values, emphasis on the classical themes, humanistic, with emphasis individual. Religious are remain very important. So even pa man nga ni kuan ni ang humanistic, still very important na gyapon sila ang religious art. Mga gyapon ang pabiling niya na pinaka-importante sa ilaha. Nga gihatagan nila ideals and values. So kaning humanism is one of the cultural movement of Renaissance art. So, characteristic of Renaissance art, realism. The three-dimensional, balanced and ordered, the portraits, landscape and attention to depiction of nature's classical styles, depiction of classical themes and stories. So, these are the characteristic of Renaissance art. Major themes of the Renaissance. Humanism, that is intellectual movement typified by a revived interest in the classical world and studies which focus not on a religion but what is to be a human. So this study both secular and religious. So as what you can see in the painting, yung gina-shows nila kung unsay potential sa usa ka human and ang pag-progress o expansion sa knowledge sa usa ka tawo yang ginapakita sa painting. So like the painting shows there that the painting virtue triumphant over the vice by the Italian Renaissance, which is the artist is Andrea Mantegna. So dili lang only nag-focus sila sa religion but they both focus the secular and religious kung unsay mga potential or mga progressive over pag-expansion sa mga knowledge sa usa ka tawo. So, impact of humanism. So medieval thought and the humanism. So church and king most important during the medieval thought, while the humanism, individual is very important. Yes, kita kada usa sa ato mga tao nagud tay mga individual mga pang-importansya sa ugalan, like sa ato mga traits, characteristic, and behaviors. So man is a sinful. So during the medieval time, ang mga lalaki sila is pakasala. So while sa humanism, man is a good with a dignity and value. So tinuod na siya ang usak lalaki is nagud na siya good nga dignidad and paghatag og value sa isa kagalingon. So hierarchy of person's worth. So mas kuan pa ang hierarchy sa usa ka tawo, mas gitagan pa nila importansya during the medieval thought. So what is humanism? Dignity and worth of people. So kita mismo, like isa kita mismo sa tawag kita ganahan niya ipaubos ato dignidad kaya dato na to ginyat kay ato dignidad is nasa siya importansya. So in humanism, dignity and worth of people mas kita mo na importante ko sa ato karon. Until now gina-adapt gyapon ta na. So life pleasure must be avoided to please God. So during the medieval thought, mas ginalikayan nila ang kwan, like example sexual, ginalikayan nila para to avoid para ma-please nila ang God. So while the humanism, people can enjoy life and still be a good Christian. Yes, ma-enjoy na to kung like kanang mananari, like so, ma-enjoy nila even though di sila mo Bible sa simbahan, as still ni remains as still a good Christian Japon sila. Ita mismo kung sa freedom nato karon or wisdom nato karon gina-experience, gina-enjoy pagapon nato ron. So accept the human condition. That is one of the medieval thought during that time. So mas kuan nila nga dapat dawaton nimo kung unsay mga condition sa usa ka tawo. So while the humanism encourage human achievements, so mas kita mismo karon gina-encourage gyapon nato kung unsay mga achievements sa usa ka tawo nga iya dawat. So po siya gina-encourage siya kung usa siya kanindot, unsa ka nindot nga iya na ipadayon. So muna siya ang encourage human achievements. Accept church doctrine without questions. So way po pangutap-pangutanan dapat dawaton na nimo ang doctrine sa simbahan. So while the humanism, each individual that finds for himself. So kung sa mga like sabi ko sa mga pangutanan sa paggalingan, kita mismo ang makatubag. Kaya ato na siya makita. Kita rin makakita kung sa solution sa mga problema, diba? So that's the impact of humanism. So humanism, the school of Athens, Raphael, a celebration of classical learnings. So that's one of example of humanism. Yeah, kada individual na jud siya importansya, like the knowledge, the expansion of knowledge, the behavior and the progress of individual. So secularism, a greater emphasis of non-religious values and concerns. Renaissance art often depicted stories and scenes from the classical literature. So at we can see at the image nga gina siya depict God nga once nga makita pa lang ka sa image ano jud kay makita, like example sa image nga pinakita diha sa about sa example of secularism. So individualism, focus on the unique qualities and abilities of the individual persons. Individualism portraits celebrated the unique qualities and personalities of individual, like the two example of Leonardo da Vinci. So muna si Mona Lisa, so muna siya isa sa unique ug pinakanindot nga quality or personalities sa usa ka individual. So Renaissance and literature. Literature is the expression of human's life, emotion and feelings through the medium of language. So it is defined as the imaginative reconstruction of human life. So kani siya ang literature is diri ginashow ang expression sa kinabuhi sa usa ka tawo, ang emotion and feelings through the language or any emotion nga pinakita nila. So the genre of literature is the prose, drama, and the poetry. So that is the genre of literature during the Renaissance time. So the Renaissance scholar used the term Renaissance to refer not only to philosophical and artistic movements but also to period during which is flourished. The period of the Renaissance saw many developments, including the invention of the printing press and the science and a new emphasis on resin ink. So the major innovation of the Renaissance, one is the printing press during the Renaissance. The printing press was developed in Germany. In 1456, the first Gutenberg Bible was printed. Printing press allowed for the spread of knowledge and ideas throughout the Europe. So, aso kayong saying nga dapat kaling print is tabangan pagdukato para na makaprint sila. Like now nga only a machine lang makalihok. Only mag-insert lang tag mga message niya or unsa makaprint na, diba? So, naagi siya kalahian. Kung sa pag may pag-evolve ko siya, transact to a new. So this one of the innovation of during the Renaissance time, the clock. Another information is the difference between the Italian and the Renaissance were different because the Italian Renaissance are rights and focus on the secularism, while the Northern Renaissance rights focus on reforming the society based on the Christian principles. So the next is the Baroque versus the Rococo. So Baroque movement begins in Rome in the early 1600 and spread throughout Europe by the 17th and 18th centuries. Rococo art dominated the French art scene mainly during the early 18th century. So ano siya ang Baroque movement began in Europe during the time that then spread siya to the Europe, while the Rococo is dominated in the French art during the 18th century. So the Baroque style, this style mainly seems almost distinguishable, but they have distinctive differences. Rococo, which relates to the French words rocaille or the massacre, and Rocoque is the Seychelles. The Seychelles is actually a divergence from the previous Baroque style. Baroque comes from the Portuguese word baro, which means food pearls. So, ang Rococo is ang Baroque and the Rococo is differences between sa duha. Kay ang Baroque style is the fluid pearl, while the Rococo is the muscle or the Seychelles nga ginabuhat nila through the art style. So na sila mga nga sometimes na sila mga related nga mga designs ang duha. Then like example you want to see the secret message of Francis Procher of 1767, the oil canvas na ang girl, which is the girl who found a necklace through the necklace with the use of the fluid pearl and the seashells of the Rococo time. The origins of Baroque and Rococo movements. The Catholic Church commissioned art in the Baroque style to retain followers during the Protestant Reformation. Baroque art was a drastic contrast to the austere, stark, and boring Protestant religion. Baroque art was a propaganda tool for the Catholic Church. So, at naman may makita ka ng like example, altar sa simbahan. So, may makita na yung mga kuan niya, austere style or stark style of work. Kita niya, boring siya kay manay mo na pero at you can see mo na yung one of the Protestant religion na pinakita nila ang Baroque style with the use ng Catholic Church. So naa siya na mga style diha para ma-retain kung sa itong mga kuan sa mga followers na ni Hawa, mas ma-retain nila, mabalik nila kung unsa para through the drastic contrast of the Catholic Church. So muna yung Baroque is muna ginamit sa Catholic Church as a propaganda tool. So in France, the Baroque style is the most fully realized in Peter Paul de Rubens' Marie de Medici cycle. This series of the 24 paintings is found in the Luxembourg Palace. Its dramatic and elaborate panels demonstrate the pomp and circumstances associated with the reign of the Louis XIV. So as you can see on the image, naka-present diha ang portrait of Marie de Medici, the Peter Paul of Rubens to oil canvas. So diha niyo makita ang image niya kung unsay na-realize ni Peter Paul Rubens during nga sa pag-shows and dramatic and pag-elaborate sa panels o pag-pump sa mga circumstances during sa pag-reign ni Louis. So, Rococo art, a more feminine, private and subtitle version of the dramatic Baroque art of the previous reign. This change from the public to private focus was the exigence for the boom of Rococo art during the early 18th century. So, as on Baroque Rococo is ginashow nila through outside kung usa ka pag-usa pa nila pag-elaborate through the outside. So while the Rococo is mas more feminine siya, mas ginashow niya through the private dramatic design. So like example kanang ginabis nga sa living room. So muna siya one of example of Rococo art. So diri sa Rococo art ginashow diri example ani sa Salon de la Princesse interior decoration of Hotel de Sauvaise. Muna siya one of example of Rococo art. So style difference between Rococo and the Baroque art. So Baroque art is known for its intensity. Baroque was a sharp divergence from the serene classical composition of the previous Renaissance and Mannerist movements. So, ang Baroque is mas sharp siya through the divergence of the serene classical composition. Kay ginagamit man gyapon nila ang Renaissance time ug Mannerism movements. So, di rin nila pagkuan niya mas na siya kalahian jud. Baroque era paintings and architectural style were contorted and illusionistic. Artists played with a triumphal wheel and the art entered the viewer space. Baroque paintings are famous for this use of the chiaroscuro. So when you meet the word of chiaroscuro, this chiaroscuro is ink painting siya. Ink painting niya siya. And mas ginawil nun pa siya. Mas ginagamit gyapon siya kay mga siya mas well known sa mga architect style. So para makita or ma-depict nila through illusionistic art movement ginamit gyapon nila. So example of Baroque art and Baroque decor. So Baroque art na makita diya based on the picture at the back na background niya sa sculpture like the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa Bernini. So naman makita diya kung unsa siya yung kakuan sa altar sa usa ka church sa Church of St. Ignatius Loyola of Rome. So muna siya ang Baroque decor and the Baroque art ginakita liha. So Rococo. Baroque period began to wind down, while the Rococo period ushered in an era of private femininity that encountered the intense masculinity of the previous era. So down na nawala na ang Baroque sa diha ka time sila. So ang saka na sa well known na sa ang Rococo period nga which is ginashow dito sa image nga mas private siya. So mas siya German Rococo interior. So na siya sa living room. So makita niyo kung usa ka nindot ang living room kay ang kanimang Rococo is based sila mas gusto nila is private or pagpa-show, hindi nila makita kung unsa kanindot, like isa po sa living room napakita nimo ang pagpanindot nimo sa usa ka living room nimo, di ka ganang living room na samok. So muna siya one of example of rococo na mas feminine and masculinity siya, pakita ang kanindot nga interior jud. So rococo art is often found in private interior spaces, most notably as salon decor. Like Baroque art, the rococo style is also ornamental and very decorative, but on much more slender scales. Rococo flourishes are often created using seashells and gilded metals in the form of twisting vines. So nakita na until now kakita ng gihapuntahan ni kay nanay mga sa mga Chinese palandaan like ng mga metal ginagamit ng meatless marsh stick, but ina-form nila og into flowers or into a tree. So mana siya sa mga TikTok kita nato siya na ayo na siya. Then ang rococo is mag-flourish through the creating seashells. So now siya kalahidan jud kay, pero nasa differences gyapon kay ang Baroque is nag-use gyapon siya ornamental, same ra gyapon sa rococo style, but ang rococo is mas decorative lang siya, mas more of decoration. So rococo painters choose the pastel colors over dark chiaroscuro, letting light wash over the entire scene. These works are very aesthetically beautiful and ethereal. So like what you can see nga babay nga nagduyan sa image is muna siya one of example dark pastel of rococo painters. Wala sila ginamit ang chiaroscuro, kaya mas ang chiaroscuro man gud is super dark na siya. So mas ginayus nila ang pastel colors to lighten up and whiten siya the entire scene, to wash over the entire scene, mas mapakita ang kanindot sa usa ka eksena sa image. So themes of Baroque and Rococo art. So the subject and themes of Rococo and the Baroque art are almost polar opposite. You know why? Because Baroque art usually depicts religious themes. So mas nag-depict pa og religion na ang Baroque. Kaya ang Baroque style manggod is ginamit through church ang mga simbahan. So kani ang Rococo period is still rooted in secular culture, which is about private, like mga living room and salons. So mas ginakita na, mas ginagamit ang Rococo dito. So Baroque and Rococo, so na-share ko mas na-focus ang Baroque style sa mga images through religion, while the one is nag-focus on secular ang Rococo through the living room or mga living area na makita nato.
And at this point, we are going to tackle about the 19th century and its background. In the 19th century, it was a period when Europe and world experienced rapid and profound changes in all areas, and many innovative and original art movements and styles were born. Some of these movements were short-lived and only flourished within small districts, while others were widespread and had a profound effect on the evolution of art. The 19th century is being classified by 8 part. We have the Neoclassicism, Romanticism, Pre-Raphaelism, Realism, Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Pointillism, and Art Nouveau. And this is how the art movement in 19th century being classified. The Neoclassical, or the Brain Rule. Neoclassicism grew as a response to the declining Rococo movement. Neoclassical art had much darker subject matter than Rococo art and was often used in French politics under such leaders as Maximilien Robespierre as well as Napoleon Bonaparte. Additionally, Neoclassicism adopted many characteristics of Greek, and Roman Classicism, which is evident in the pose of figures, the types in the paint, and the drapery of fabrics. Neoclassicism was an art movement that sought to evoke the style of classical antiquity in writing, painting, and sculpting and culture. And we also have Romanticism or emotions rule. Romanticism refers to a movement in art, literature, and music during the 19th century. In this part, emotions are rather than reason. Romanticism is precisely suited neither in choice of subject nor in exact truth, but in a way of feeling, wrote poet and critic Charles in 1846. Romanticism is characterized by the five I's, which is imagination, intuition, idealism, inspiration, and individuality. In this picture, we can see the example of Romanticism wherein emotion is being practiced rather than anything else. And now we have the Pre-Raphaelites. Pre-Raphaelite character are women whose beauty is based on real-life mistresses and models of the English painter Dante. He was the founder of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, a secret of society. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, later known as the Pre-Raphaelites, was a group of English painters, poets, and art critics founded in 1848. Their picture of religious and medieval subjects strove to revive the deep religious feeling and naive directness. And for its example, as you can see, it represents woman. And we also have Realism, the real world rules. Realism art movement originated in 19th century France due to the Industrial Revolution and harsh realities birthed from it. Realism more often depicts poverty and the working class. 19th century realism began in France during the 1840s as a response to the four leading romanticism of the age. The realism or period was surrounded by revolution and forward thinking as seen in the 1848 revolution in France. In this picture, this is an example of a realism art. And we also have Impressionism, or what we call capturing the moment rules. Impressionism was a late 19th century art movement that focused on painting outdoor scenes with an accurate depictions of natural light conditions. Impressionist works captured the feeling of a moment as if the artist sat down to paint after taking a mere glance at the scene in front of them. The Impressionist movement began in April 1874 with an exhibition put on by the Anonymous Society painters, sculptors, printmakers, members of which included Renoir, Monet, and Degas, as well as Camille Pissarro at Berthe Morisot. This example of the Impressionists, later known as the first Impressionist exhibition, this event was the premier reveal of Impressionism art. If we have Impressionism, we also have Post-Impressionism. It is an expressive brushstroke rules. What is it? Post-Impressionism was a predominantly French art movement that developed roughly between 1886 and 1905 from the last Impressionist exhibition of the Berthe. Fauvism. Post-Impressionism emerged as a reaction against Impressionist concerns for the naturalistic depiction of light and color. They continued using vivid colors, sometimes using impasto, thick application of paint, and painting from life, but were more inclined to emphasize geometric forms, distort form for expressive effect, and use a natural or modified color. So, in X example, you can see in the art that it is a naturalistic color, or it uses vivid color, which is very light. And now we also have pointillism, or what we call dots rule. Pointillism, also called divisionism and chromolarism in painting. The practice of applying small strokes or dots of color to a surface so that from a distance they visually blend together. And lastly, we have the Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau, or Manentale style of art that flourished between about 1890 and 1910 throughout Europe and the United States. Characteristic of Art Nouveau is its undulating asymmetrical line, often taking the form of flowers, stalks, and buds, vine tendrils, insects, wings, and other delicate and sonorous natural objects. So this is example of Art Nouveau. So just like in another era or other eras, 19th century has its inventions. And examples for inventions of the 19th centuries are the steam engine, the locomotive, the telephone, the telegraph, the internal combustion engine, the rifle, organic ships, electricity, light bulb, photography, and cotton gin. As we can all see, and in all fact, we are using photography app until now. So that is one of the long-lived innovation of the 19th century that we were talking earlier. So now that we are done in the 19th century, we are going to proceed in the 20th century art movements. This 20th century art and what it became as modern art began with modernism in the late 19th century. The 20th century was a period of radical departure in the way almost every previous area of human activity. Accelerating scientific understanding, better communications, faster transportations transformed the world in those 100 years more than any time in the past. This century was dominated by a chain of events that heralded significant changes in world history as to redefine the era. One of 20th century is the Fauvism. Fauvism was a joyful style of painting that delighted in using bold colors. It was developed in France at the beginning of 20th century by Henri and Angers. The artist who painted in style was known as Le Faux. Le Faux believed that color should be at its highest pitch to express the artist's feeling about a subject, rather than simply to describe what it looks like. Fauvist paintings have two main characteristics, commonly known as extremely simplified drawing and exaggerated color. In the 20th century, we also have Expressionism. Expressionism, the self-expression in the art of Vincent van Gogh and Edvard Munch, inspired expressionist artists in the 20th century. German Expressionism is a style of art that is charged with an emotional or spiritual vision of the world. We also have the abstract. Abstract art attempts to shift the focus to one or more of those elements so the viewer can witness those elements in a new and haven't witnessed before. The word abstract means to withdraw part of something in order to consider it separately. In abstract art, that's something one or more of visual elements of a subject, its line, shape, tone, patterns, texture, or form. There is no must in art, because art is free by Wesley. So below are the example of the abstract arts. We also have Cubism. Cubism was invented around 1907 in Paris by Pablo and George. It was the first abstract style of a modern art. Cubist paintings ignore the tradition of perspective drawings and show you many views of subject at one time. The Cubists believed that the tradition of Western art had become exhausted, and to revitalize their work, they drew on the expressive energy of art from other cultures, particularly African art. Of course, we also have Futurism. Futurism was a revolutionary Italian movement that celebrated modernity. The futurists adapted the visual vocabulary of Cubism to express their ideas, but with a slight twist. In a Cubist painting, the artist records selected details of a subject as he moves around it, whereas in the Futurist painting, the subject itself seems to move around the artist. The main figures associated with the movement were the artist Umberto, Giacomo, Gino, and musician Luigi Russolo, and the architect Antonio Sant'Elia. And we also have the steel. The steel was a Dutch style of pure abstraction developed by Pate and Theo. Modern was the outstanding artist of the group. Mondarian gradually refined as element of his art to a grid of lines and primary colors. He saw a primary colors in a universal harmony way. Yellow radiated the sun's energy, blue receded of infinite space, and red materialized where blue and yellow met. And as you can see on the other part of the screen, we can see the example of a distill. And we also have Dada. It was a form of artistic anarchy born of the ghost of social, political, and cultural establishments of the time, which it held responsible for Europe's descent into World War. Dadaism was an anti-art stance as it was intent on destroying the artistic values of the past. Dada's weapons in the war against the art establishments were confrontations of provocation. And we also have Surrealism. Surrealism was the positive response to Dada's negativity. It aims to liberate the artist's imagination by tapping into the unconscious minds to discover a superior reality as a reality. To achieve this, the Surrealist drew upon the images of dreams, the effects of combining the associated images and the spontaneous form of drawing without the conscious control of the mind. The most influential of the Surrealist artists were Max, Joan, Salvador Dali, and Rene. Aside from those, we have also abstract expressionism. Abstract expressionism was fueled by the idea of the subconscious to paint without thought was in full flow by 1946. The pioneers of abstract expressionism were Jackson, Lee, Mark, Willem, Clifford, Franz, Philip. Modern of the contemporary art was the first American art style to exert an influence on a global scale. It is also known as action painting, a title which implied to the physical act of painting was import as the result itself. And now we also have pop art. Pop art was hugely successful and became an icon of the 1960s. The champions of pop art were Roy, Andy, and Tom. Pop art was branched, colorful, young, fun, and hostile to the artistic establishment. It coincided with the globalization of pop music and youth culture, personified by Elvis. The images of celebrities, consumerism by Andy Warhol, and the comic book iconography of Roy represent the style as we know it today. Now we also have the Op art. Op art is short for the optical art. It was an abstract style that emerged in 1960s based on the illusionistic effects of line, shape, pattern, and color. Op artists such as Victor Vasarely and others, the movement. Time magazines refers to the new wave as op art and how it manipulated the eye. Op art was very popular with the public and was quickly commercialized by the design and fashion industries. And we also have minimalism. Minimalism was not only a reaction against the emotional charge techniques of abstract expressionism, but also a further refinement of pure abstraction. It is used hard-edged forms and geometric grid structures. The color was used to define space or surface. Minimalism was a style that could be easily translated into architecture and furnishing. And of course, we have photorealism. Photorealism, also called superrealism, American art movement that began in 1960s, taking photographies as inspiration. Photorealist painters created highly illusionistic images that referred not to nature but to the reproduced images. Photorealists typically projected a photographed image onto a canvas and then used an airbrush to reproduce the effect of a photo printed on a glossy paper. So the big question, what is the most important thing that happened in the 20th century? The World War sparked tension between countries and led to the creation of atomic bombs. The Cold War led to the space race and creation of space-based rockets, and the World Wide Web was created. This advancement have obeyed a significant role in citizens' lives and shaped the 21st century into what it is today. Images below are the most important inventions of the 20th century. We have the nuclear power, the airplane, television, the personal computer, rocketry, and submarine.